No one dared to talk to the millionaire son, until a homeless black girl did the impossible. Isha, a young girl of 14, walked along the crowded streets, her small basket clutched tightly in her thin hands. She had been on the streets for as long as she could remember. Her clothes were torn, her feet were bare, and her stomach had grown used to the constant pangs of hunger. Yet, despite all the hardships, she moved with a sense of purpose, knowing that she had to survive no matter what. Aisha had learned to be careful. Every corner of the city held dangers, men who might take advantage, police who might chase her away, and other street children who sometimes fought over food. But she had also learned to notice the little things that many people ignored. The way the sun glinted off a window, the sound of laughter from a nearby cafe, or the small kindnesses of strangers. Today, she hoped to sell a few trinkets to earn enough coins for a simple meal. As she walked past a busy street, something unusual caught her eye. Behind a row of parked cars, a young boy was sitting on the ground, his face buried in his hands. He wore a crisp white shirt and polished shoes, clothes that were clearly expensive and out of place on the dirty sidewalk. Aisha had seen rich people before, but they were always inside cars, behind fences, or in fancy stores. Seeing one of them sitting on the street crying was strange. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she cautiously approached him, keeping her basket close. The boy did not notice her at first. His shoulders shook slightly with silent sobs, and his hands covered his face. People passed by without giving him a second glance. Some even stepped over him as if he weren't there. Aisha felt a strange pull in her heart. She knew what it was like to be invisible, to feel like no one cared about your pain. She knelt down a few steps away from him, trying to make herself smaller, less threatening. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Her voice was gentle, not demanding. The boy flinched and looked up, startled. His eyes were red and watery, and he quickly wiped them with the back of his hand. He looked around nervously, as if embarrassed to be seen crying. I'm fine," he stammered, his voice shaky. "I just lost something." Isha didn't press further. She simply smiled at him, a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay. Sometimes things get lost and it feels scary, but it's not the end. Maybe I can help." The boy hesitated. He looked at her clothes, her bare feet, and the basket she carried. Most children like her were invisible to people like him, or worse, ignored or scolded. But something about Aisha's calmness made him pause. For the first time that day, he felt a little less alone. Aisha reached into her basket and pulled out a small piece of bread. It was dry and simple, but it was all she had saved for herself that day. She held it out to him. "Here," she said. "You look hungry. Maybe this will help a little." The boy looked at the bread as if it were something precious. He hesitated, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. Finally, he took it and nibbled quietly. Aisha watched him, feeling a warmth in her chest. She didn't know why she cared so much about a boy she had never met, but she did. Helping him didn't cost her much, and yet it felt like she had given something important. As he ate, she noticed his hands were shaking. He was not used to asking for help, and even accepting it seemed difficult. Isha didn't say anything. She simply sat a few feet away, giving him space but staying close enough so he didn't feel alone. After a few moments, he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you. I don't know why I'm crying. I just felt lost." Isha nodded. "Sometimes that happens. Life can be confusing and it can make us feel alone even when people are around. But crying isn't bad. It just shows that you care about something, that you feel deeply. And that's not a weakness, it's strength." The boy looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. His tears began to slow. He wasn't used to someone talking to him like this, not with patience, not with understanding. Most adults in his life were busy, distracted, or impatient. But Aisha didn't rush him, didn't judge him, didn't act afraid of his status. She simply listened. Minutes passed. The noise of the city seemed to fade around them, leaving only the two of them in that small corner. Aisha noticed small details about him. The way his hands trembled slightly, the crease of worry on his forehead, the expensive watch on his wrist that looked too heavy for his small arm. And she noticed something else. Despite his wealth, despite his clothes and his shoes, he was just a boy who needed kindness. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" Aisha asked gently. He shook his head. I don't think anyone would understand. I have everything, but sometimes it doesn't feel like enough. People expect me to be perfect, to always smile, to never make mistakes. But I just wanted someone to notice me today." Aisha nodded again, understanding more than he realized. I notice you, she said simply. I see you, and that counts for something. The boy looked at her, and for the first time that day, a small smile appeared on his face. It was hesitant, unsure, but real. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Someone cared, not because of money, not because of family, not because of appearances, but just because he was a person. Isha didn't know it, but this small act of kindness, the simple offering of bread, the gentle words, the quiet attention, was already changing the boy. It was planting a seed of trust, something rare in his world of wealth and expectations. And in return, it was changing something in her too. She felt stronger, more capable, as if helping him had reminded her of her own value. As the afternoon sunlight began to fade, the boy finally stood up. He brushed his clothes, straightened his shirt, and looked at Isha with gratitude. Thank you, he said again, more sincerely this time. You really helped me today. I don't know how, but you did. Aisha smiled, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of pride and humility. I'm glad. Sometimes all it takes is a little help, a little understanding, and that's free. The boy nodded, then hesitated. Will I see you again? Isha thought for a moment. She didn't know. Her life was on the streets, unpredictable and hard. But something in her heart told her that this encounter was not the end. Maybe, she said softly. If you need me, I'll be around. He smiled again, this time a little more confidently, and walked away, blending into the crowd. Isha watched him go, feeling a mix of hope and curiosity. She didn't know who he was or what his life was like beyond the streets, but she knew that this small moment had changed something for both of them. And as she walked back to her corner to continue selling her trinkets, she felt lighter than she had in months. She had faced the harsh city streets, seen suffering and sadness, and yet she had made a difference. Small, yes, but real. And for Aisha, that was enough. The sun set slowly behind the tall buildings, casting long shadows across the streets. The city was loud, chaotic, and unforgiving, but in that small moment, two people, one a street girl, one a millionaire's son, had found a connection that neither would forget. Aisha didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of a story that would change her life forever. After that first encounter on the busy city street, Aisha could not stop thinking about the boy. His face, his tears, and the way he had seemed so lost stayed in her mind. She wondered who he was, and why he seemed so alone despite wearing such fine clothes. Life on the streets had taught her that appearances often hid real stories, and she sensed that behind his polished shoes and crisp shirt, there was a child struggling with feelings no one could see. Over the next few days, Aisha continued her routine. She sold trinkets, walked long stretches to find small jobs, and dodged trouble whenever it came her way. Her life was predictable in its unpredictability, a strange paradox she had learned to accept. Yet a part of her longed to see the boy again. She didn't know why, but she felt a connection, a tiny spark that told her this meeting was not just a coincidence. One afternoon, while trying to sell small bracelets near a busy market, she noticed him again. He was sitting on a bench, looking around nervously. He hadn't noticed her yet. His expensive backpack rested beside him, and he seemed out of place, as if the city streets were a different world than the one he belonged to. Aisha hesitated for a moment. Normally, she avoided attention. After all, the streets could be dangerous. But something about him made her step closer. "Hello," she said softly, not wanting to startle him. He looked up, surprised, his eyes widening when he saw her. You're the girl from the other day," he said, his voice cautious but curious. Isha nodded, holding her basket close. "Yes, I'm Isha. Are you okay today?" He hesitated, glancing around as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. Finally, he nodded. "I'm a little better, thank you for asking." They sat in silence for a few moments. The city buzzed around them with the sounds of traffic, shouting vendors, and children laughing. But in that small space, it felt quieter, calmer. Isha noticed that he was still trembling slightly, and she offered him a small bottle of water from her basket. "Drink this," she said. "It's hot today, you might be thirsty." He took the bottle gratefully, holding it with both hands as if it were precious. "Thank you," he whispered. No one really notices me like this. People see the money, the clothes, but not the person." Isha listened carefully. She had learned a long time ago that sometimes the most important thing a person needed was simply to be heard. "I understand," she said gently. "It's not easy to feel invisible, but I notice you, that matters." The boy's eyes softened, and he looked at her as if seeing a friend for the first time. "Do you want to sit with me?" he asked hesitantly. I mean, you don't have to, but he trailed off, unsure how to express the loneliness he felt. Isha smiled and sat beside him. I don't mind, she said. Sometimes it helps to have someone beside you, even for a little while. For the next hour, they talked quietly. He told her his name was Armin and that he came from a very wealthy family. He had everything anyone could wish for, but he often felt trapped by expectations. He was supposed to behave perfectly, never make mistakes, and always look happy. But inside, he often felt lonely, misunderstood, and overwhelmed by pressure. Isha shared small pieces of her life, too. She told him about the streets, about the days she spent selling trinkets or begging for food, about the fear of being alone and having no one to protect her. She spoke about her dreams, small as they were, and the little joys she found in kindness and small victories. Armin listened intently, fascinated by her courage and resilience. He could not imagine living a life like hers, constantly uncertain, constantly fighting to survive. You're amazing, he said finally, his voice full of admiration. I don't think I could ever be as strong as you, Isha shrugged. I have no choice, she said simply. Life doesn't give you many options when you live on the streets. You learn to fight to survive. But strength isn't always about muscles or money. Sometimes it's about hope, about kindness, about never giving up. Armin thought about her words carefully. For a boy who had grown up surrounded by wealth, influence, and privilege, these ideas were new and powerful. He realized that he had been missing something essential, something that money could never buy: understanding, empathy, and genuine human connection. Days turned into weeks, and Aisha and Armin began to meet more frequently. They found quiet corners of the city, away from the crowd and the noise, where they could talk without fear of being interrupted. Sometimes they shared food, sometimes stories, sometimes laughter. Isha taught Armin small survival tricks, like how to read the city streets, where to find safe places to rest, and how to notice people who truly cared. Armin, in turn, showed her kindness in ways she had never experienced before. He would bring her small gifts, not money, but thoughtful things like a notebook, a pencil, or a small toy he thought she might like. Aisha always refused large sums of money, insisting that she wanted nothing for helping him. But Armin persisted, realizing that she was different from anyone he had ever known. She did not see him as rich or powerful. She saw him as a person, and that, he realized, was worth more than anything money could buy. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Armin shared something he had never told anyone else. I don't like my life sometimes, he admitted quietly. Everyone expects me to be happy, perfect, and successful, but I feel so trapped. I don't know who I am or what I really want. Isha listened, nodding. I know that feeling, she said softly. Sometimes life makes us feel trapped, like we have no choices. But the truth is, we always have choices. They may be hard and they may take time, but we can decide how to respond, how to act, how to live. You just need to find what matters to you. Armin looked at her, a mixture of awe and gratitude in his eyes. You really understand me, he said. No one else does. Maybe that's because most people only see what's on the surface, Isha replied. They don't look deeper. They don't ask, they don't care, but I do, I see you. As the days passed, their friendship grew stronger. They laughed, shared stories, and even cried together. Armin began to confide in Isha things he had never told anyone else. His fears, his dreams, and even the mistakes he had made. And Aisha, in turn, found herself opening up in ways she had never done with anyone before. She felt trust, safety, and a rare sense of belonging. One day, Armin did something unexpected. He pulled out a small envelope from his pocket and handed it to Aisha. I want you to have this, he said. It's just a little something to show my thanks. Aisha looked at the envelope and shook her head. I can't take this, she said firmly. I didn't help you for money. Armin insisted, his eyes serious. I know, but I want to. You've helped me more than anyone ever has. You've made me feel human. I want you to have something for yourself. Aisha finally accepted, carefully placing the envelope in her basket. It wasn't about the money inside. It was about the gesture, about recognition, about being seen and valued. She smiled at him. Thank you, she said simply. From that day on, their bond became unbreakable. They were two children from completely different worlds, yet they had found a connection that transcended money, status, and circumstances. Aisha taught Armin courage, empathy, and resilience, while Armin showed Aisha trust, friendship, and a glimpse of a life she had never imagined. The city continued to rush around them, full of noise, danger, and unpredictability. But in their small corner of the streets, Aisha and Armin had found peace, understanding, and hope. They discovered that true friendship was not about wealth, power, or appearances. It was about seeing, listening, and caring for another human being. And for both of them, that realization would change everything. Aisha no longer felt entirely alone in the world, and Armin no longer felt trapped by it. Together, they had created a small sanctuary of trust, kindness, and hope in a city that often seemed indifferent to both. Little did they know that this friendship, born from a moment of compassion, would soon open doors, change paths, and transform lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. Over the following weeks, Aisha and Armin's friendship grew stronger with every meeting. They had found in each other something rare: trust, understanding, and a sense of belonging that neither had experienced before. The city around them remained chaotic, loud, and often unforgiving, but in their small corner of quiet streets, they felt a freedom they could not find anywhere else. For Aisha, this was a new world of gentle attention and kindness, and for Armin, it was a world where he could be himself without pressure or expectations. Each afternoon, after finishing her work of selling trinkets and small goods, Aisha would find a bench or a quiet corner where Armin was waiting. Sometimes, they simply sat together in silence, watching the busy city life go by. Other times, they talked for hours about dreams, fears, and the future. Aisha listened as Armin spoke about the pressures he faced at home, the constant demand to excel in school, the unspoken expectation to behave perfectly in every situation, and the loneliness that came with wealth. No one at home seemed to notice his emotions. His parents were kind but busy with their social circles and business responsibilities, leaving little room for emotional connection. "I feel like no one sees me for who I really am," Armin admitted one day, his voice quiet. "People see the wealth, the car, the clothes, but no one sees me. They don't see that I'm scared, lonely, or that I sometimes make mistakes." Isha nodded, understanding completely. "I know that feeling," she said softly. "Sometimes people look at us and only see what they want to see. They ignore the real person. That's why you have to be strong inside. You have to hold on to the part of you that matters, even when others don't notice it." Armin looked at her with admiration. "You're amazing," he said. "You've survived so much, and yet you help me. You care even when you don't know me. I wish everyone in my life could be like you." Isha smiled. "You'd be surprised," she said. "Most people care, but they just don't know how to show it." Kindness can be small: a smile, a few words, or even just listening. That's what matters. One afternoon, Armin suggested something that surprised Aisha. "Do you want to go somewhere different?" he asked. "Somewhere quiet, away from the streets?" Aisha was cautious. She had learned that the streets could be dangerous, and she did not fully trust the world of the wealthy. But she trusted Armin. "Where?" she asked. "There's a park not far from here," he said. "It's quiet with trees and benches. People don't usually go there in the afternoons. We can talk and not worry about anyone bothering us." Aisha agreed, and together they walked to the park. It was a world apart from the noisy streets, filled with soft grass, tall trees, and the distant sound of birds. Aisha felt a strange sense of peace she had rarely experienced. She sat on a bench, feeling the cool shade and listening to Armin's voice as he spoke about his favorite books, his hobbies, and the little things he loved but could not share at home. "I love drawing," he admitted quietly, "but my parents think it's a waste of time. They want me to focus on academics and prepare for the future. But when I draw, I feel free. I feel like myself." Aisha smiled, understanding perfectly. She knew what it was like to have dreams that others might dismiss. "Then draw," she said simply. "Do what makes you happy. Life is too short to ignore the things that make your heart feel alive." Armin laughed softly. "I wish it were that easy. My life is complicated." "Life is complicated for everyone," Isha replied. "It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. Everyone has struggles. The important thing is to keep going no matter what. You can't give up on yourself." Over time, Armin began to open up more and more. He trusted Aisha with stories he had never told anyone. He spoke about moments of fear, sadness, and even shame, things he thought would make others look down on him. But Aisha never judged him. She listened with patience, with understanding, and with kindness. And with each story he shared, their friendship grew deeper. Aisha, too, shared her life with Armin. She told him about the struggles of living on the streets, about the nights she went hungry, about the fear of being alone. She spoke about the small victories she achieved each day, selling enough to buy food, finding a safe place to sleep, or helping someone in need. Armin listened, fascinated. He could not imagine surviving so much hardship, yet she did it every day with courage and resilience. One day, while walking together, Armin stopped and looked at her seriously. "Isha," he said, "I want to help you. I don't mean just a little, I mean really help. You shouldn't have to live like this." Isha shook her head quickly. "I don't want charity," she said firmly. "I didn't help you to get something in return. I want to help because it feels right, that's all." Armin insisted gently. "It's not charity, it's appreciation. You've changed my life. I want to give you a chance to change yours." Isha hesitated. She had lived a life of independence, of surviving without relying on anyone. Accepting help felt strange, even uncomfortable. But she trusted Armin. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, and she knew he was not offering this out of pity. "Maybe," she said slowly. "But only if it's something I can handle. I don't want to lose who I am in the process." Armin nodded, understanding. "I promise you won't lose yourself. I just want to give you options, something you never had before." From that day on, Armin began to involve Isha in his world in small ways. He introduced her to his favorite library, showing her shelves filled with books she had never seen. He took her to quiet cafes where they could talk, and sometimes he would simply sit with her in the park, letting her rest and relax. Aisha felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The world he showed her was different, but it was also full of possibilities she had never imagined. One afternoon, while sitting in the park, Armin said something that made Aisha pause. "You're amazing," he said. "You've survived so much and still stay kind. Most people would become bitter, but you shine. I've never met anyone like you." Aisha smiled softly, feeling warmth spread in her chest. "I've learned that life doesn't give you a choice sometimes. You either stay bitter or keep going. I choose to keep going." Armin nodded thoughtfully. "I want to help you go further. I want you to have opportunities, education, a safe place to stay, a chance to follow your dreams." Isha looked at him, surprised. She had never imagined a life like that. For most of her life, she had only thought about surviving the next day. Dreams were small, like having enough food or a safe place to sleep. But now, Armin was talking about possibilities, education, safety, and a future that was her own. I don't know," she said quietly. "I've never had these chances before. I don't know if I can handle it." "You can," Armin said firmly. "You're stronger than you think. I've seen it. You've survived things I could never imagine. You deserve this chance." Aisha took a deep breath. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a life beyond the streets, beyond struggle and hunger. She saw herself learning, growing, and achieving things she had only dreamed of in secret. And in that moment, she realized that this friendship, this connection, was more than just companionship. It was the first step toward a new life. Over the next few weeks, they made small plans together. Armin's family, impressed by Yisha's courage, honesty, and intelligence, agreed to help her. They offered her a safe place to stay and an opportunity to attend school. Yisha felt nervous and excited at the same time. She was leaving the only life she had ever known, stepping into a world completely different from the streets. But she trusted Armin, and she trusted herself. The day she left the streets for the first time in her life, Aisha looked around at the familiar corners, the bustling streets, and the people she had known. She felt a mix of sadness and hope. Sadness for leaving behind the life she had known and hope for the life she was about to begin. As Armin walked beside her carrying her small bag, he smiled. "You're going to do amazing things," he said. "I know it." Aisha smiled back, feeling a warmth in her heart. "I hope so," she said softly. "I really hope so." And as they walked together toward a new beginning, both of them understood something important, that friendship, trust, and kindness had the power to change lives. Not just for the moment, but forever. The day Aisha stepped into a new life was unlike any she had ever known. She left behind the narrow alleys, the crowded streets, and the familiar struggles that had shaped her entire childhood. In their place were clean walls, soft floors, and rooms filled with warmth and light. It was overwhelming at first, a world so different from the one she had always known. But she had Armin by her side, and that made her feel safe. She took a deep breath, trying to absorb every detail. Everything smelled new, looked new, and felt new. Armin's family welcomed her with kindness. They did not treat her as someone to pity or as a charity case. Instead, they treated her as a guest, a young person with potential, someone worthy of respect and encouragement. His mother offered her a warm smile and introduced her to the house, explaining the rules kindly but firmly, making Aisha feel included. His father spoke to her about opportunities, about education, and about using her talents wisely. Aisha listened, feeling nervous yet excited. She had never imagined this kind of treatment, this kind of attention. Her first days were a mixture of curiosity, wonder, and adjustment. She explored the rooms, learning where everything was, and began to understand the rhythm of this new life. The house was filled with books, art, music, and quiet spaces where she could think. It was a stark contrast to the streets she had lived in, where every day was about survival, and moments of calm were rare. Aisha found herself breathing deeply, appreciating the comfort around her, yet a small part of her heart ached for the streets she had known so long. The most important change, however, was school. For the first time in her life, Aisha attended a proper classroom with desks, chairs, and teachers who guided her learning. She was nervous at first, unsure if she could keep up with students who had been studying their whole lives. But she soon discovered that her life on the streets had given her strengths many students lacked: resilience, observation, and determination. She worked hard, asked questions, and absorbed knowledge eagerly. Every new lesson felt like a small victory, a step toward a future she had only dreamed of. Armin stayed close to her during this time, encouraging her, helping her with studies, and reminding her that mistakes were part of learning. "You're learning fast," he said one day, watching her solve a problem. "I knew you could do it." "You've always been stronger than people realize." Isha smiled, feeling proud. "It's different here," she said, "but I like it. It's exciting." Despite the comforts, Isha never forgot the life she had left behind. She often thought of the friends, the small joys, and even the challenges of the streets. She remembered nights when she had nothing to eat, and mornings when she hoped someone would notice her. Those memories gave her perspective, a grounding sense that reminded her of how far she had come. And she carried those lessons into her new life, never allowing comfort to make her forget the value of resilience, kindness, and empathy. Over time, Armin and Aisha's friendship grew even stronger. They shared meals, studied together, and explored parts of the city that Aisha had never visited. He introduced her to museums, libraries, and art galleries, explaining everything he loved about them. At first, she felt overwhelmed by the beauty and sophistication, but she quickly adapted, learning to appreciate new experiences while remaining true to herself. Aisha's courage and honesty impressed everyone around her. Teachers noticed her determination, classmates admired her focus, and Armin's family saw in her a spark that was rare. She was not just a girl who had survived. She was a girl who had thrived despite adversity. And as her confidence grew, so did her dreams. She imagined finishing school, pursuing a career, and helping other children who were struggling like she once had. Her heart was filled with gratitude, hope, and a desire to make a difference. One evening, as she and Armin sat in the garden watching the sunset, he turned to her and said, "Aisha, you've changed my life too. You taught me courage, honesty, and kindness. I don't think I would have realized some of these things without you." Aisha felt a warmth in her chest. "We've changed each other," she said softly. "You helped me see that life can be more than survival. You gave me a chance I never thought I'd have." From that day on, Aisha began to think about the future with clarity and determination. She focused on her studies, worked on her skills, and dreamed about ways she could help other children living on the streets. She realized that her experiences, though painful, had given her empathy and understanding that many people lacked. And she knew that one day, she could use her story to inspire others, just as Armin had inspired her to believe in herself. Months turned into a year, and Aisha adapted fully to her new life. She excelled in school, participated in activities, and developed friendships with classmates. She learned that the world could be kind, that people could offer genuine help, and that her past did not define her future. Armin continued to support her, celebrating her successes and helping her navigate challenges. Together, they formed a bond of trust, friendship, and mutual respect that could not be broken. Aisha also began small acts of giving back. She volunteered at local community centers, helped children with reading, and shared stories of resilience and hope. She wanted to ensure that others who had struggled, like she once had, knew that life could change with kindness, courage, and opportunity. She wanted to be a living example that no matter how hard life had been, the future was full of possibilities. One day, Armin's father spoke to her privately. "Aisha," he said kindly. "We are proud of you. You've done more than we expected. Your determination, honesty, and intelligence are exceptional. We hope you continue to grow and achieve everything you dream of. You deserve every opportunity." Aisha bowed her head, feeling a mixture of humility and pride. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. "I will work hard. I will not waste the chance I've been given." Her relationship with Armin remained special. They had grown from a chance meeting on a city street to lifelong friends. They trusted each other, supported each other, and shared dreams and aspirations. Armin had helped open doors, but Aisha had walked through them with courage, determination, and integrity. Together, they had created a story of friendship, trust, and transformation. Years passed, and Aisha's life continued to blossom. She completed her education, learned new skills, and developed a career that allowed her to help children in need. She never forgot the streets where she had grown up, the hardships she had faced, or the lessons she had learned. Those experiences shaped her into a woman of compassion, resilience, and strength. She often reflected on that first day she saw Armin crying on the street. A simple act of kindness had started everything. Offering him bread, listening to his troubles, and treating him with care had not only changed his life but also hers. It had opened doors, built trust, and created opportunities that she had never imagined. That small moment had been the beginning of a journey that transformed her from a street girl into a confident, educated, and compassionate young woman. Aisha's story became an inspiration to many. People admired her courage, resilience, and kindness. She showed that no matter where you start in life, no matter how difficult the circumstances, one act of compassion, one connection, and one opportunity can change everything. She also proved that true friendship, built on trust and understanding, could bridge worlds that seemed impossible to connect. And as she looked at Armin one afternoon, sitting beside her in the garden, she smiled. Their lives had changed because they had seen each other, really seen each other, beyond appearances, beyond wealth and poverty, beyond fear and expectation. That connection had created a future filled with hope, possibility, and happiness. Isha knew that her journey was just beginning, but she also knew one important truth, that kindness, courage, and friendship had the power to transform lives forever. And she carried that truth with her every day, living proof that even the smallest acts of love and understanding could make the impossible possible.